My name is Ted Lind. I've been a volunteer at the PRC for something like 16 years now. I've been in the computer program one way or the other, refurbishing computers, teaching computer literacy and the like. So I've got a fair amount of experience in it. I've always been interested in cryptology, which of course leads into cybersecurity. So cybersecurity is kind of my hobby. I have a real interest in it. And I've spent a lot of time studying it and figuring out what's going on. And I'm hoping that today I can provide everybody with some basic information that will make you a lot safer online and make it a little easier to manage your computer life. The wild west of the internet. The internet started about 40 years ago. It originally was just a little network that connected some government computers to universities across the country. And at the time they put it together, there was absolutely no thought of security because it really wasn't necessary. It started to evolve, and I think around the mid-'80s, the first browser came out. And as a matter of fact, I think it was developed right down at the University of Illinois. And the guy who developed it eventually got mad and left, and he created Netscape, which is defunct now. But we now have, Chrome and Internet Explorer and Firefox are the main browsers. And of course, the internet is spread to where it covers the whole world. Probably half the population of the world connects with the internet either on a computer or a smartphone or a tablet of some kind. Most of the security stuff applies to them all because they're all computers. And the problem is with the internet, it covers all the countries. And in some countries they have certain kinds of laws, other countries don't have any kinds of laws. Eastern Europe and China tend to have a lot of people who try to take advantage of the internet to make money. And you can understand why they do. If you live in a country where you make, $1 a day, it is very profitable to be able to create some kind of a cybersecurity scam, sell it, and make a couple $1,000s a week. So there's a lot of motivation to do that. This is what makes the internet the Wild West. There's a whole bunch of people out there who are trying to do things. I'll give you a little background on it. Some of it I'll read. It's actually turned into a $400 billion business as of right now. That's a good-sized business for anything. There are over 1 million people a day victimized by cybercrime. Organized criminals, foreign governments, online gangs, online forums exist that provide marketplaces for people to sell computer exploits and the kinds of things they do. They can sell stolen data, they can sell credit card data, your codes on the back of your credit card, social security numbers, just about anything. If you want to launder some money in Munich, translate your spyware into Korean, or stolen data in Bangalore, there's services, criminal services. You can sign up just like eBay to be able to buy some of this stuff. Just to take a quote here, Interpol states that in the past, cybercrime was committed mainly by individuals or small groups. Today, we are seeing criminal organizations working with criminally minded technology professionals to commit cybercrime, often to fund other illegal activities. Actually, they go out and recruit computer science specialists, and they hire them, and they pay them benefits and everything. So it's just like a business. These are the topics I'd like to cover today, and what I want to do is, everybody's heard of exploits on the top. I'm not sure everybody knows what it is. I want to spend some time talking about all the different cyber attacks that are common on today's internet, talk about links, which are kind of a key part of it, and then hopefully ways you can protect yourself, things you can do with your computer, the backups, passwords, and the like. What are exploits? Let me ask you a question. How many lines of code do you think the Windows 7 operating system has? Anybody got an idea? Any kind of guess? Pick a number. 1,000.
Oh, no, I'd say more than that. Somewhere in the middle.
A million back there. Well, the real number is about 40 million. Now, they're really short lines of code in the most cases, but there are 40 million lines of code. And then you have applications like Facebook. Well, they have almost as many lines of code than your thing. Now, you would think that seems rather large, but your computer is capable of holding an awful lot of information, and in effect, they take advantage of it. And unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess, this is starting to move to your cars. The newer cars are connected to the internet. There's all kinds of exploits that can take place there. iPhone, just to give you an example, has more computing power than we did on Apollo 11 on the spacecraft. So that gives you an idea how capable these devices are coming. Now what hackers do is they study the code and look for ways to make it misbehave. So when you've got 40 million lines of code, somewhere in there you're going to find a misplaced comma, or you're going to find a go-to or a statement that tells it to do something that isn't structured quite right. And if you feed it the right information, you can get it to do something that the authors never intended it to do. And it turns out that they study this code to try to make it misbehave. It can be a coding error and that kind of thing. And it's actually quite profitable. What they do is you'll get computer science majors. You know, it used to be it was the kid in the back room or in his bedroom hacking away just to see how things work. Now you have people in the poorer countries who will spend weeks or months trying to find one of these errors, and then they develop some code around it. And the whole idea of the code is to get them to be an administrator on your computer system, because once they're an administrator on your computer system, they can do what they want with it. So these guys sit there and they study and they create these exploits, and then what they can do when they get a good one is there's a criminal equivalent of eBay. And what they can do is package it up and they offer it for sale on eBay, and they say, oh, you can have this package for only $5,000. And of course, they'll sell it to as many people as they can. They may sell it to 10 or 15 different people. Now, they don't exploit it themselves because they don't have the resources to do it. But what they do is they sell it to one of these criminal organizations, and the criminal organization has usually a botnet. And what a botnet is, it's a whole bunch of computers, which may include your computer, incidentally, that they've gained control over. And what they're able to do with a botnet is they can tell all these computers what to do. So if they create an email, for instance, that they want to send out that's a scam, they can send it to all these botnet computers, and each of those computers will send out 10,000 copies when you're not using it. So they buy the exploit, they incorporate it into a web page, or they incorporate it into an email, and then they send it out to their botnet. They create 100,000 copies, send it to everybody, and the ones who bite get back to them, and they're the ones that they work the scam on, or they can take control of their computer and use it as another computer in the botnet. The services of the botnet are sold. They're up for auction. You know, you want to distribute an email to 100,000 people, well, just give them some money and they'll do it for you. So that's how this thing kind of works. They can certainly make very good living by doing these things. Okay, I want to talk about cyber attacks. You know, they say the best defense is knowing what your enemy is going to do. So I'd like to spend a little time talking about the kinds of things that happen. As I said, their main goal is to make money. There's all kinds of schemes to steal this, to steal credit card numbers, particularly Social Security and bank information, so they can do identity theft. One of the top ones of these is called a phishing attack. And I kind of like this cartoon, because here's a guy holding the bait up in front of a thing, hoping that he'll take it. And the way it works is they'll typically send you an email link, and in an email or something like that, and the link goes to a malicious website, and the website can actually execute code on your computer. Most websites are HTML pages, which are kind of harmless in themselves, but oftentimes they will embed things in them. For instance, you see videos when you go to a page. It'll show a video, or it'll show an ad, or it'll show things moving around, or pictures. Well, until recently, HTML couldn't do that, so what they did is they used things like Adobe Flash, or they used things like, it eludes me for a minute. They're scripts that you can write that will do this kind of thing. So when you go to those sites, they'll write a script that will do funny things to your computer. So the phishing attack is when they send you an email or that will direct you to a malicious website. Some of the things they can do to you is they can install worms or viruses in your computer. I think you know a little bit about what they are. They can offer a free application which will install an executable program on your computer. When you click on one of these programs, it usually comes up and says, do you want to run this program? It'll say yes or no. Okay, that's actually a very important decision, because when you say yes, you're giving them permission to do what they want with your computer. So before you click on one of those, do you want to run this code, you really got to think about it and make sure it comes from a trusted source. And who hasn't received an email from Nigeria? Has anybody not received an email from Nigeria?
From the king?
Yep. There's kind of an interesting thing about it.
$1 million something, it's sitting in the account just for you.
Yeah, well, it's really kind of interesting. One thing you got to ask yourself, is everybody in the room knows Nigeria's got all kinds of scams and that kind of stuff. Why would you ever click on an email from Nigeria? You wouldn't, would you?
You wouldn't know if it came.
Why do you suppose? No, almost every letter from Nigeria tells you it's from Nigeria.
They do.
Sure,
There's
it'll
something
say,
wrong
oh,
with it.
it'll be in the email address or whatever. Now, doesn't that seem kind of silly? I mean, everybody knows Nigeria is a place full of scams, and yet they write Nigeria in the email letter. Why do you suppose they do that?
Curiosity.
Pardon me?
Get your curiosity a little bit.
No, it actually turns out it's a
It is
very
so-
clever piece of social engineering. Because what they want to do, just imagine, they're sending this email out, they'll send out 100,000 emails. Well, they don't want to talk to the 90,000 people who know it's a scam. So what's a good way of eliminating those people? You tell them it's from Nigeria. So anybody who knows that it's a scam doesn't get back to you. Who are the ones that get back to you? They're the ones that don't know it's a scam. Those are the ones you want. Okay? So it's a great screening scheme to get rid of all the people that they can't scam. It's really very clever. Cyber attacks. Another mode that they get at you. A lot of us use public Wi-Fi spots. In other words, you go to anywhere. You come to the PRC, we got a public Wi-Fi. Well, actually, we've got a password on it. But there's a lot of places you can go in, like Culver's, for instance, has one, where you can connect your phone or your computer to the internet. Okay, and on these Wi-Fi sites, the stream of information is not protected in most cases. It's fully in the open. So you get a situation like this, you know, here's a guy comes in, Culver's typing his, oh, public Wi-Fi, I can talk. And then here's a hacker watching everything that he does and can read all the packets and see exactly what he's doing. Okay, so it's really, really not a good idea to do anything important on a public Wi-Fi. You know, you don't want to put in your bank password, and you don't want to go to your investment account, and you don't want to look at your credit card account. There is a way of doing it. There's a thing called a VPN, a virtual private network. And you can install that on your iPhone or your computer. In fact, I got it on my iPhone computer. And when I'm in a public spot, if I have to do something that's I want to be careful about, you can turn on the VPN. And what that does is it encrypts all your data, and they can't see what you're doing. They can tell where you're going, but they can't see any of the data that passes through there. There's usually a charge for it. You know, like I think the one I got costs like $30 or $40 a year. And you can switch it off and on, and you can put it on like 5 devices. I wouldn't recommend one. There's several of them out there that you can do that would work if you're interested in doing that. My main piece of advice be, don't do banking on a public Wi-Fi site. Not a good idea. Okay? One of the other things that these hackers do is they use social engineering. When I talked about Nigeria, that was an example of it. But there are other examples of it. For instance, they can call you at home. I've had this happen to me 3 or 4 times at least, or maybe more than that, where you get a phone call. When I first got my computer, I got a new Dell computer about 1.5 years ago, and I was having some trouble with the screen display on it. So I had, you know, it's under warranty, so I called support, and they did their usual thing, and they finally blew me off by saying, let's restore your computer to factory condition, which is a sure way to get rid of you. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I got a call, and somebody said, oh, you know, we're from Dell. We've noticed you've got a problem with your computer. And I said, oh, really? And they kind of sucked me in a little bit because I had been talking to these guys, or I was in the process of doing it. So I said, yeah, go to your computer, and, you know, let me tell you. So what they did is they took me to what they call the event viewer. And there's a thing in the Microsoft operating system that keeps a log of any little errors or everything that's going on in your computer. So they took me, most people don't ever look at it, okay? So they took me to the event viewer, and if you're used to looking at it, what you realize is that there's always something going on there. There's always warnings, there's always little red X's of things where a program didn't terminate properly. And they said, oh, look at those little red X's, you know, you've got a problem. You know, we can help you fix that. Well, how do we do that? They said, well, we're going to send you a link, and when you click on it, we can connect to your computer, and we can fix your computer for you. Well, obviously, you really, really don't want to do that, because as soon as you give them control of the computer, they can do whatever they want.
That just happened to me this weekend. I had an issue with my HP printer,
Uh-huh.
and I found a link that said HP customer support, and I can't believe it, but I actually allowed somebody to, they did a go-to assist,
Mhm.
And we connected, and then where I realized that he wasn't trying to help me is when he said like, oh, you're a really good customer, and for $199, and then
Yeah, that's about right.
And then I ran into the 365 program,
Yeah.
which caught cookies, but I have no idea if I exposed myself more than,
Did you actually give them control of your computer?
yeah.
That's a little worrisome.
Mhm.
You can run a antivirus scan on it and some things like that. You can never really quite be sure though. That's one thing that's bad about these things. There's no red flag that pops up and say you've been compromised. So once something like that happens, I guess you just got to be kind of careful and run an antivirus or.
Well, I can't believe it because usually I'm so super cautious. And,
Oh yeah. In fact,
Gets you everywhere though.
on all these emails and everything, you never want. Well, I'll get into that when I talk about links, but you never want to accept somebody who calls you or sends you an email or sends you a link because you really don't know where they're coming from. You have absolutely no idea where they're coming from.
What does that VPN stand for?
The which?
What you said?
Oh, VPN, Virtual Private Network.
Oh, virtual private.
Yeah, and there's certain services like, what's one I use? It's Internet Privacy. There's several of them out there. You can look them up. And what they do is they install a little program in your computer, and what it does is they encrypt anything you're doing. They send it to a server somewhere in the world, and as it comes out the other end, they decrypt it. Okay? But what that means is if you're on a Wi-Fi, nobody can see what's going on that Wi-Fi. See, this can be a problem too if you live in an apartment, because we have an office upstairs and we can see the Wi-Fi connections of people in the apartments across the way. So all we need is a little directional antenna and aim at them, and we could see a lot of the stuff they're doing, in their living room.
And doesn't HTTPS protect from your computer to the host?
Yeah, usually when you, I'll get into that, but usually when you connect to a bank or someplace like that, and it's getting to be more the standard. Normally, if you look at a link, it'll say HTTP:// and then you'll have the domain that you're going to. Well, when you go to a place, a bank for instance, it'll say HTTPS. There'll be an S on the end of that. And usually your bar at the top will be green, or there'll be a key lock or some kind of an indication that you're on a secure site. What that means is that the information is encrypted in your computer before it's sent over the internet. And the bank at the other end is able to decrypt it. So they can't see any of the information that goes on in between. And that's a good thing. Okay, it's not completely foolproof. There is a way of doing a man-in-the-middle attack where somebody can kind of behave like your bank, accept your messages, and then send them on to the bank. And when the bank comes back, they kind of turn around and send them back to you. So there are ways of kind of getting around it, but it takes, the more complex and harder to do these things get, the less frequency you see them. So normally an HTTPS connection is pretty good. Okay, so anyway, that gives you an idea what these guys can do. Cyber attacks. Oh, this is a really good one. You're going to love this one. Ransomware.
Oh, yes, I've heard of that.
What ransomware does is somehow, again, through a malicious website or whatever, they get you to install some of their software on the computer. And what the software does is it encrypts your entire hard drive or any hard drives attached to your computer. And they're very good at crypto. It's actually an excellent crypto program. It's pretty bulletproof. And what they do is, well, the way they do it is, of course, they install a rootkit or something like that to get it done. And they encrypt everything on your computer, and then they send you a note saying, oh, you can have it back. All you got to do is pay us $600 or something like that. And they offer several methods of payment. And actually, they've done a very good job of cryptography. There's no way to get it back. Absolutely none. The only thing you can do is pay your money, and quite frankly, they have a pretty good business model. They actually send you the keys to decrypt it, and they'll let you decrypt your drive. And where they make a lot of money is like small police departments or small village computer systems, or maybe PRC computer systems. Because not only will it encrypt the computer that it comes in on, but it's network aware, and it'll encrypt any computer on that network. So basically, if they manage to infect like a small police department, all their criminal records and their fingerprints and personnel records and everything is encrypted, and they're out of business. Because you can't hardly run a business today without a computer. So they've collected quite a bit of money of that. I mean, that's almost a couple $1 billion business all by itself. What the hackers want is control of your computer. You know, what they're really after is administrative privileges. And they'll do two things with it. They'll either steal information if you're a business, they'll try to get your databases and things like that which have your information in it, or they can use your personal computer in a network of slave computers called botnets. Okay, and that they just use it to infect other computers. Well, what can you do about it? Before I go into that, what I'd like to do is, I'm going to switch things here a little bit. I want to show some examples that might be kind of instructive. You know, I happen to be insured by USAA because I was in the military at one time. And I got this email. It says, oh, due to concerns for safety and integrity of your USS account, we've issued this warning message. Okay, and come to our attention, needs to be upgraded as part of our continuing commitment. Please click on this link up here, follow it, and update your account. Okay, and if you click on that, you'll get a perfectly nice looking page. It'll have, it left it out here, but there's actually a USA logo up here. The other page looks just like stuff I get from USAA. You know, everything like it. One of the things you can do when you see something like this is look very carefully at this domain up here. USAA is USAA.com. What have you got here?
USAA.
An extra A. And what that extra A means is you're going someplace else. It's not USA. So when you see stuff like this, look very carefully at where they want you to go to. Here's one from Bank of America that I picked up from somewhere. Same thing. You can see the same kind of thing going on. And that might be your bank. What I wanted to do is, you know, look at this part of the domain. You can see they can make up anything they want. And if you see stuff like this, you know, these are kind of indecipherable domain names. Saloon Cloud, Trust in That, Code Inspection, you know. All you got to do is read it, and you get immediately suspicious about some of these guys. Pardon me?
.nz when you get
Yeah.
it from different countries.
Now this one is a real one. I mean, these are real ones, and most of them. This guy runs a healthcare service, Monarch Senior Care. Usually it says exactly what they are, and you could actually go look them up on the internet because oftentimes they'll have a website that matches this. So these are legitimate ones. These are really illegitimate ones. Give you an idea what they look like.
Those headers are hard to find sometimes on your phones though, right?
Well, yeah, it makes it easier for them to get you.
On the laptop it's easy to get, but when you're on the phone, you're trying to find where it come from. And
Yeah, sometimes they hide too much, but then what you do is you just don't trust them.
yeah.
I mean, just like the USA. Let's suppose I was concerned that my account really did have a problem. Okay, what you do is A, you get on a phone and call them, or you can go to their website. In other words, you're not asking for anything, you're going to their website and you're looking at the communications they send you. So don't accept anything that people offer you, unless you got really good reason to do it. The reason I brought this one up, and this is another one of these, confirm your Twitter account, and usually when you look at that page, they have some nice links, like a submit button, or they have, you know, something where you just click on it and you go do it. Well, if you look at the code behind a submit button, that's what it looks like. It's not just a submit button. It's got a whole bunch of stuff in here that takes you to a website and causes things to execute and that kind of stuff. That's what's behind those web pages. In Chrome, what you can do is you can right-click on like a submit button, and it'll say show source. So if you click on it, it'll actually show you all this stuff behind you. But it gives you an idea of how much is hidden on a web page, and you really kind of got to be careful about that. One other thing I wanted to mention when I was at it. One thing is they often actually do, or when you go out and you're looking for some kind of utility or program. So you click on it and you want to install it. You'll get something like this. Now this is a legitimate program that does synchronization backups. And you'll get a page that looks something like this. And you say, okay, I'll do local, it looks good. Hit the next button. And when you do that, you can get something like this. Dragon branch, add features to your browser and whatever. You really got to read these things. Because if you click on this, it's going to install a whole bunch of stuff that's going to, at least, it's not malware, but it's really nasty adware. And it will give you all kinds of pop-ups. It'll change your browsers so that they don't use Google as a search engine anymore. It'll do all kinds of stuff for you. So you really got to look at it. Now, you can use this by just clicking the Don't Accept button, and they won't install it. And it's really kind of legitimate because they use this ad to pay for their site. So, but you do have to be careful to read these agreements when you go through this stuff. Links. I just want to spend a little time on links. You know, you get links in email, you get links on a web page, and what a link is it takes you to a web page somewhere else in the world. You have no idea where it is. It's an address that, in effect, takes you there. And JavaScript is commonly used on a lot of the web pages, and it's the thing that does execution and can install stuff in your computer and what have you. That's how they're able to get a foothold on your computer. And of course, any new page can have ads, pop-ups, other kinds of links that can cause problems. And this is a common one. You go somewhere and all of a sudden, oh, your computer might be infected. Call us and we'll take care of you. Don't do that. Really not a good thing to take anything that's offered to you. And just to reinforce that, never provide personal account or passwords to a page you don't trust. If you're using a sensitive site like a bank or brokerage or shopping site, you really want it to be HTTPS. Because most of them, if it's important like banking or whatever, it'll do that. It shows as a green key. Public Wi-Fi isn't secure without a VPN. Try to only use trusted websites for the stuff that's important. Okay, now we get into what you can do about it. There is a little bit of hope. It's pretty dim up to this point. You know, you want to run out in the hallway and scream or something.
Pretty much.
Okay, one of the most important things you can do, and probably one of the most things that is most neglected, is updating your computer systems. You know, Windows has an automatic update feature that should be turned on. Apple updates Mac and iPhones and that kind of stuff. Android, I'm not quite sure what they do because I'm not real familiar with the Android system, but I'm sure they have something kind of similar to it. And what you want to do is put it in the automatic update mode, and you want to check it occasionally to make sure it's actually doing it. Because what this does, we were talking about exploits way back at the beginning. These are errors in the code. Well, a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago, Microsoft was really bad. I mean, it was a place to attack because they had all these errors and they didn't pay much attention to them. Well, to their credit, Microsoft has gotten one heck of a lot better. They patch things, quickly. They find these errors, they fix them, that kind of stuff. And they've actually become very hard to attack. Hardly anybody attacks Windows directly anymore. They used to do it all the time. And it's a very juicy target. I mean, Windows is on like 95% of the computers in the world. So if you're trying to get money by attacking something, you pick the 95% share because you got a much better chance. Well, both Windows and Apple, iOS, doesn't get attacked very directly anymore. What they do is they attack by going through the software you put on your computer. Good example. Most of you probably heard of Adobe Flash. It's the thing that gives you the movies and the videos when you click on a web page. It's a very old program. It's been around, 15 years, something like that. And it hasn't really been updated. And until recently, Adobe was pretty negligent at doing anything about it. So what the hackers would do is they would attack the Adobe Flash software, and they would use that to pry open some part of your operating system. That's why, Steve Jobs came out and he said, we won't allow Adobe Flash on iOS. He just banned it. And that's why he did it. And it turns out it's really going away because HTML5, which is the latest version of the code you do pages, can do most of those things without using Adobe Flash. So if you got Adobe Flash, not a bad idea to get rid of it. But what they do is they attack other pieces of software and are able to get into it. Now, getting back to these patches, one of the things it does, Windows has Windows Essentials, which is an antivirus application. There's actually an antivirus program built into Windows. It updates automatically. It scans your computer automatically. And actually, that's all that I use on my computers. And I've gone years without ever having a problem. Now, there are commercial antivirus programs available. They usually come on a new computer. You know, it'll be McAfee, or it'll be, I don't know, all the other names. There's a whole bunch of them. What they usually do is they'll give you free updates, and they'll scan your computer for 6 months or a year, and then they want you to subscribe. Now, the free version will still run, but you don't get as much as you get with the pay version. They're really trying to get you to subscribe. So they're usually free. Some internet services, Comcast, I believe, provides, I think they switched. It used to be McAfee, and now it's something else. And they'll provide it free as part of the service. One thing you got to be careful of, don't run more than one AV program. They don't play well together. They fight with each other. So you want one antivirus program on your computer, and you want to keep it up to date just like you do the operating system. And again, there's a cautionary tale here. Think about your antivirus program. What does it do? It scans every program that you try to execute, scans all your files, does a lot of stuff. It can stop a program from running. It can put it in quarantine. So what does that mean? It means it's got a lot of administrative privileges on your computer. So guess what? What do you think the hackers are now attacking? Antivirus programs. They're trying to get into those, find errors in the antivirus program, and use those to take over your computer. So it's just something that's just kind of starting now. So it's something you can kind of pay attention for. I like this little cartoon here. I think I set the security level on my antivirus software too high. Whenever I access anything, it automatically is deleted. That's one way of being safe, I guess. This is the Windows Update setting window. I just wanted to show it, but in your control panel, all control items, Windows Update, there's a screen like this, and it tells you you're automatically set to install updates. You can use the screen to set it to do updates. It will tell you how many are available. What it does is it downloads it, and then it'll install it for you automatically. It installs only major and critical updates. In other words, the ones you really need. There's also optional updates which can make some things on your computer better. Most of the time you don't have to bother installing them unless there's some real reason you want to do that.
So Ted, wait 1 second. So if you're not set to automatically install, did you say that? You just go to settings and change it?
Yeah, you can change it.
Okay.
And you should do that. And what will happen too sometimes is on a normal Windows screen, it doesn't show it down here, but down here in the taskbar, if it downloads it and it doesn't install it, you'll get a little shield down there. And you can click on that shield and it'll tell you, you know, do you want us to install these updates? That means it's not fully automatic. It's downloading it, but it's waiting for you to tell it to install it. So you can kind of keep an eye out for that. If there's ever an error or something, it'll generally show up down there. Okay. Also, applications. If you have applications, you really want to do the updates on the applications. You got Adobe Reader. That's a good one to do an update because it has been subject to a lot of people trying to hack it. So you want to check, you'd really like to have your software you mainly use, like Outlook, let's say, or Office or things like that, check for updates and let it install it automatically. Be really careful when you install new applications. This is what people normally do wrong. First of all, it has to be compatible with your operating system. We get repairs all the time upstairs where people, you know, might have an XP computer and they try to install, I don't know, Office 16, 2016. And the trouble is, if you read the box on the software or you read the web page on it, it will tell you that you need a certain level of processor, you need a certain memory, you need a certain amount of free disk space. It'll tell you what resources it requires. Some programs require a very specialized interface like a graphic card or something like this. If you try to install that program on your computer and you don't have those resources, it could be your computer will stop working. So you really need to check what the requirements are when you install something on your computer before you install it. And if you don't, you can bring it down here and we'll repair it probably. Okay, I went through all this, and of course nobody reads the agreement. I'm not sure what they mean anymore. They're written in legalese. They're totally indecipherable for the most part. Probably doesn't hurt to glance through them, but they're pretty much useless. And you got to really watch for when they install it that they're not trying to change your search engine in the browser, because that's something that's pretty common. And in general, on your computer, if something is misbehaving, first thing you want to do is reboot your computer. Because what happens when you reboot, it kind of reinstalls everything fresh. And if there was some kind of an error that took place, or you kind of mess something up, it'll generally fix it. And if worse comes to worse, I'm going to give a pitch here for People's Resource. They do a great job repairing computers upstairs, and they can fix most of the problems, and they do a pretty good job of it. Computer backup. This is very important. We talked about ransomware. Okay, if you get stuck by ransomware, they got you. Clearly. Well, this is what you can do to avoid the problem. Okay? You really want to, they keep all their code in the hard disk, and if it gets encrypted, you're in trouble. Okay, now what you can do though is make backups, and certainly you want to back up your pictures, your documents, the stuff that's really important. Okay, and there's several ways of doing that. So if you've got a small amount, you could actually just use a USB hard drive. I've got one around here somewhere. A little flash drive, put the stuff out on the flash drive, unplug it from the computer, okay? Because if it's unplugged from the computer, it can't get encrypted, and you'll always have that as a backup. You can use a backup service. There's one, I happen to use Carbonite. And what that does is it's a subscription service. It's like $40 or $50 a year. And it does a real-time backup of all your documents. It doesn't back up your system, but any document you've got on your picture, a Word document or whatever, it will back it up usually within 15 or 20 minutes after you've saved the file. You can also write critical data to a DVD. Now these are going away though. DVDs are getting rarer and rarer, but you can buy a USB hard drive for certainly less than $100, and it plugs into the USB drive, and it's an extra hard disk. And a lot of them come with backup programs where you can tell it back up all your data to the hard drive. And the key thing is two things: you got to remember to do the backups. Second key thing you got to do is unhook it from your computer, because if you leave it sitting there and ransomware hits, it's going to get hit too. So you'd like to, really what you want is a multi-level backup. You'd like to have a drive that's not connected to the computer, that's got your stuff on it. If you can use something like Carbonite, that's great, because if your house burns down, the drive isn't going to do you any good. That will put it out on the cloud, and you can recover it later. Actually, Carbonite can actually recover from ransomware. But it's a little difficult. You have to work with their customer service, because as soon as your stuff's encrypted, Carbonite's going to back up the encrypted copy. But one thing Carbonite does is it keeps versioning. In other words, it keeps previous versions of everything. So what you got to do is work with the service and pull the previous version down if you want to recover that way. And of course, if you put it on DVD, you can take it and put it in your safe deposit box or something like that to keep it safe. You really want more than one way of backing it up, and you really want an offline way of doing it too. If you do that, when you see the ransomware warning, you can say, ha, just restore your system and put your data back. It's still a pain in the neck, but it's a lot better than paying $600 or $700 to be able to do that. And obviously, this is what the bad guys are trying to do. Passwords, my favorite subject. I have 140 of them or something like that. They are terrible. You got to keep track of them. And what I want to do is just give some advice on how to do this. You need it on most sites. First thing you can do when it's the easiest is use a passphrase. Something like this: Stardust ... 60187. In other words, a word you can easily remember. It's got a capital here, so you've used a capital. It's got a lowercase. Got 3 dots, which are special characters, and it happens to have my old zip code. Okay, so the zip code's burned into your brain. You don't have to remember that. All you got to do is remember the word and put your special characters in there and capitalize it. So it's very easy to remember, but it's actually a very good password, because it's what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 15, 16 characters long, which is kind of the recommended length for a password. Actually, anything 12 or 13 or better is really kind of what you ought to use. Now, this is a strong password, and what I do is I use strong passwords on the critical accounts: banking, investments, credit card. and they're different. You don't want to use the same password on those 3 accounts, because if somebody somehow gets a hold of one of them, then they got the other 2 if they know who you are. So most people probably only have 3, 4 critical accounts. So recommend you use a really strong password, because that really works. I mean, if you have a good password, even if they steal the database, they generally can't get at your information because it's usually encrypted at those institutions. The second thing you can do is you have a problem remembering, well, with the critical passwords, I just shown somebody earlier, I got a little card. I put the 3 really critical ones on here and I put it in my wallet. Nobody can hack that over the internet. And yet,
I hope you don't have them tagged with, my Google password.
No. I just got them in there, and somebody would have to figure out where they go, and I'm not very likely to lose my wallet. Okay, so that's the way you should handle your critical accounts. Now, they should have unique passwords. I said that. Sites you don't care about, you could reuse a simple password. What I do is I have a lot of sites where I just don't care. I have an old Yahoo account. It's an email account. I go and eliminate the spam once every couple of weeks. And that's about mostly what I do with it. And there's a lot of them like that. Matter of fact, it's a good idea to have more than one email account too. In other words, have an email account you give out to all your friends and close relatives. Have a second email account, which is a junk account. It could be an AOL or Yahoo, which are really terrible. It turns out Microsoft's, it used to be Hotmail, they call it, I don't know, Live Mail or Outlook or whatever now, is actually very good at eliminating spam. I get a minimum of spam in there. So what I use that account for is whenever you go, for instance, to make a purchase at some website, or you go to look up information, they say, oh, give us your email address. Well, that's the one I give them, because I'm not going to ever look at that. Okay, so I kind of segregate all the junk mail elsewhere, and I only give out my personal account to people who really count, so to speak. And so that's the way I would handle it. And then the passwords and the stuff you don't care about, make it simple. You can still use a capital letter, and you can say autumn with a capital A, 22 or something like that. But use it on more than one account, because you don't really care about those. And if people want to look at them all, fine. So that's the way I would handle passwords, and it keeps it much simpler if you do that, and you get much better protection if you can use a strong password. One thing I wanted to do. This was a really interesting study that was done. What they did, there was a research group at the university. They surveyed 231 experts. These were kind of cybersecurity experts, computer experts. And then they surveyed 294 regular people. You guys, okay? And basically what they tried to do is to determine the percent of participants who thought each of these items were important or not important, and they compared the two. And there's some interesting difference. They have update system here. Well, the non-experts, down in the dust. 3% thought it was important to patch their operating system or to turn on automatic update. Cybersecurity guys, they're way up there. On the other end, changing passwords regularly. Regular people said, oh, you got to do that. You got to keep changing your passwords. Well, the expert said, nah, why bother? Because it isn't that important. If you set them up right in the first place, you really don't have to do this very often. Deleting cookies. You see a lot of things that, oh, you got to delete cookies. Don't care. Experts don't care. They never even look at them. Here was another big difference. Using antiviruses. You'll notice everybody uses antivirus except the experts. They don't use it very much. Okay? And the reason they don't use it very much is if you're really careful about not clicking on links, of accepting stuff that's offered to you, of using good passwords, and having a good backup on your computer, you don't need much of this, actually. You have one good, like Microsoft program running in the background or some other commercial program. That's good enough. And then some of the things we talked about, HTTPS, making sure on secure sites you've got that. You really got to use unique passwords. Again, as the experts are really up there. So you don't want to use, you don't want to use this. Let's see, I got something here. One of the things they do when they try to hack your account is typically they don't try to find a password on your computer. They'll steal a database from somewhere, okay, where your password is stored. Now, if the people who have got the database are doing their job right, all the passwords are encrypted. and they're encrypted good enough, it's a one-way encryption. In other words, you can't start with the encrypted and get back to the password. You can only start with the password and see if it comes out to the same encrypted value. But the way they steal a lot of passwords is there's a list of 500 passwords on the internet in the order that people tend to use them. In other words, these are the most popular passwords in the whole world. So the most popular password in the whole world is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? You just go along typing and hit keys. Password. I mean, really brilliant. And then some people get a little harder and they make it 7 and 8, right? I love some of these.
QWERTY.
Yeah, QWERTY, admin,
Keyboard.
let me in,
Oh,
monkey. This used to be up here about number 5, but it's kind of slipped down the list. So what these guys do when they try to hack they got this password database, they just feed these in one after the other and see if that's your password. And quite frankly, 20–25% of the passwords will turn out to be one of these. So you don't want to do this. You want to pick a good password. Okay, I just wanted to kind of finish up on a positive note. It's been almost an hour. There is hope. Okay, first of all, if you do simple things like good passwords, worry about where you go, have unique, strong passwords for your unique sites, and just do some of these safety things, you're probably better off than 95% of the rest of the people. There's a lot of research being done. They're using biometrics. Apple has got a fingerprint system that you can use, which is pretty good because it's based on biometric. Not perfect. There are some issues with it, but it's a pretty good way of doing it. This is actually a very safe way of doing it. You'll see this on some of your banking accounts. And what this is you use a password to get into your account or to start getting into your account. And then what the bank does is it sends a message, an instant message to your smartphone. And it'll have a number, like a PIN number in it. And then you have to enter that PIN number on the computer screen. And what this does is what they call two-factor authentication. In other words, you use your password as the first factor, you send it to the bank and they say, okay, we know who you are. And then because they know who you are, they know where to send the PIN to make sure it's you. In other words, they can't send it to somebody else's smartphone. They have to send it to your smartphone, which is yours and you got it in your pocket. And then when they get the number back, they're saying, yep, you're really you. So it's just an added guarantee that they're talking to the right person.
You'll often do that when you're accessing your account with the new computer that you
Yeah.
haven't accessed. They don't do it every time.
Right.
They do it,
Yeah, you're going to see a lot more of this because there's a lot of this cyber crime that's going on. It's big business. So everybody's got to get better. In fact, that's why they're going to cards or chip cards. They're screwing it up, but they're going to chip cards. You know, the whole idea, in Europe, they've been using chip cards for years. And the way it works is you put your card in the thing, and it asks you for your PIN number, your second factor authentication. In the U.S., I think they thought it was too difficult for us, so now you put in your card and you write your signature just the way you did the old way, which doesn't mean a thing. They don't really use a signature. So hopefully we'll get the PIN numbers before too long. Operating systems have improved tremendously. Companies are getting serious about the security of their websites and servers. You know, it used to be you go to a website and you try to give it a 15-word password with a special character and it would say, oh, we can't take that. It's got to be less than 8 characters and it's got to be lowercase in number, which is an immediate warning. If you ever see that, run. You know, don't ever go back there. And then there's some new methods being developed. I kind of like this one. There's one called Squirrel. Gibson Research is doing it, and it's a way of getting a unique password for any website that's strictly you on that device. And it requires no entry of passwords or anything. After the initial, he uses a QR code, or you can do it manually on a computer. And once you've signed in, it recognizes you forevermore till you go away, and it's very secure. And I believe that's pretty much what I had planned on going through. So, any questions? Anything you'd like to? I better get out of the light, I guess. Anything you would like to ask about your computers or your particular situation that I haven't kind of hit on?
Here's one thing I'd like to mention, which I usually mention to people, as far as links. Whenever you see an email or you're on a web page and
You got me.
link in it, you hover the mouse over it so it turns into a little pointy finger, and down at the bottom on the status line of your browser, it'll tell you where it's really taking you. they can put whatever text that they want you to. This is going to chase.com, and if it's a phishing scheme from trying to pretend that they're Chase, they'll say, yeah, log on to Chase's website. But if you hover over it, it'll tell you where it's really going to take you, the web address. And if that doesn't exactly match what you expect, big red flag.
Yeah, usually, that's one thing I missed. Links, even in email, whatever, are usually blue or they're underlined by a line. There's something to set them apart and show you they're a link. So that's what you really
Where does
need.
that show up when you hover over it? It
I'm
shows
down
up
at the
when
bottom
you-
lower left-hand corner.
Which device or which operating?
Any non-mobile browser will.
Okay,
IE will, and you used to be able to turn off, I think you still can turn off the status line.
Yeah.
And IE, and, no, never do that because that's
Yeah.
important information.
Yeah, see-
Firefox and Chrome will show it.
see, that's part of the problem. Most people are like my aunt. She can log on and she can find her email and she can go to her newspaper in her browser, and that's about it. So, you know, you really want to keep things as simple as you can for the most part, because most people really don't understand all the technology. So, but if you do basic stuff like this, you'll be in pretty good shape. Okay?
Thank you.
Thanks, Ted.
Thank you very much.